A big congratulations to Nico Echavarria. At the time of recording today's full swing analysis video of him, the Colombian professional golfer has just gone on to win this past weekend, which marked his third victory in his PGA Tour career, having claimed the Cognizant Classic title. When it comes to assessing Nico's performances off the tee, his accuracy is something certainly worth highlighting in this department. With regards to his length off the tee, that is what's associated with the red that you're seeing on your screen right now, averaging just over 294 yards. For the amateur golfer listening to this, that probably sounds like he's hitting it a country mile. And by no means is he a short hitter in the grand scheme of things, but these things are all relative. That 294 yards does see him lag behind the PGA Tour average for driving distance these days. But this, I think, does serve as quite a helpful reminder that there will be a barrier for entry distance-wise. Yes, no matter what level of the game you aspire to be competitive at, but you just need to be long enough. Once you are long enough, if you're putting yourself in scoring positions, which he clearly is, he's quite efficient with the length that he does have, and he needs to be. As long as you're putting yourself in scoring positions, you can have no problem at all getting your hands on some silverware. In today's full swing analysis video of Nico, I want to talk you through some of the pieces in there that make his swing quite unique to him, and let's play him on in full speed here before I get stuck into it. As we get Nico moving into his golf swing here, I want to start by highlighting the address position of his hands and putting your attention towards his hand pats in the takeaway. So you can see his first move off the golf ball here, the hands work out a little bit here. Now, this isn't necessarily something I would recommend as a golf coach to the masses of amateur golfers potentially watching this video. Now, of course, it depends on the player, what their ball is doing, and where their swing is at this moment in time. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that Nico should change it, but I think that's the great thing that we can do here in a Tour Pro swing analysis video, is to highlight some of the pieces within their technique that if an amateur golfer tries to copy, they can likely have some success with, but also highlighting certain pieces in there that if they did try to emulate, they may face some challenges with. So for a lot of amateur golfers, just purely from the point of view of trying to get them a little bit more consistent with their strike and their directional control and their shots, a lot of amateur golfers would have an easier time if their hands traced an arc more on the inside here by this point. But as we see Nico work a little bit more on the outside with the hands here, this obviously isn't the problem for him, but there is a bit of saving to do after this because of what it produces at the conclusion of his takeaway here. As I say, a lot of amateur golfers may struggle from this position because that outside move with the hand pats early on creates a disconnect from the lead arm to the chest here, and we can see it rolls the club face open, so the toe of the club is now up to the sky. A common reference point that you'll often see people refer to these days in relation to the club face angle is that of the club face angle to the player's spine angle by the finish of the takeaway, and here we can certainly see that that club face is open to a spine by this point. So from here onwards, there is a little bit of saving to do to get that club face back into a functional spot come impact. As we wind them to the top here, I'm liking what I'm seeing here in terms of how I would feel in regards to promoting some of this towards the amateur golfers out there watching this. We look at his structure to his arms at the top, and although we said he had his hands moving a little bit out on the takeaway, as he rotates his body to bring him to the top of the backswing, his arms get a bit more in, and we can see that his lead arm, as a nice reference point here, that it's just a little bit high compared to the angle that his shoulders are on and their inclination down to the ground, but really nice spot here. His trail arm has some nice structure to it as well. We see his trail forearm reasonably upright, which would indicate that there's some nice external rotation of that trail shoulder here. Now, after this point, this is where things start to get a bit interesting, or quite a lot interesting, I should say. What you're going to see from here is an aggressive rotation into the downswing. By this point here, we can see he's turning hard against that lead arm. That lead arm is now fully loaded across his chest here at this point. And by this point of lead arm across the chest and level to the ground again, this is often a position where there's no two swings alike on the PGA Tour. However, there's quite a lot of guys at the elite level of the game that by the time this lead arm is level to the ground, their knee flex will have come back to where it was essentially at their starting position. So what I mean by that is in a starting position here, both knees are relatively speaking, thereabouts the same flex. As he works his way to the top of the backswing, the trail leg will extend some amount as the lead knee flexes. And then on his way back down, by this time of lead arm level to the ground, there's a lot of guys on tour where, just from a sequencing standpoint, their knees have now re-entered the flex position that they were at the start. However, for Nico here, indicating just how much he is rotating into his downswing here, we actually see his trail knee is kicking out here, and we can see it's more forward of where his left would be when viewing it from this down the line position. But again, that's just an indication of how hard he's rotating. And as we continue to progress him into the shot here, we can see that rotation slings the club in behind him, so the shaft splits through the trail forearm. We can see just how open those hips have gotten by this point. And all things being equal, the harder we rotate in the downswing, that is also another piece in the swing that, all things being equal, will open the club face even more. So there is some serious hand-eye coordination required from this point for him as he comes down and into impact. Again, amazing to see just how open his hips are by this point. His shoulders, nowhere near as much as his hips have opened, but again, that's very normal. We wouldn't expect to see someone's shoulders match the amount of the lower half in terms of rotation by impact, but we still see a little bit of bend to that trail arm. A split second later, and it's going to be straight, mind you, and it better be for him, for trying to get that club face squared back up. As we play him on here, what you see here is, if I was to highlight his pelvis here, as I mentioned, there's a lot of clearance here, so we actually see his pelvis stall here during the follow through, right about there. So hopefully you can see that quite clearly, but there is a little bit of a stall. Almost Rory McIlroy-esque. There was a great deal made about Rory McIlroy having that stall move of the pelvis, particularly when he first came on tour. It's a little bit unique. There's a few other players out there that demonstrate this move, but logically it makes sense that there's only so far that his lower half can get ahead of his hands and arms before they have to stall out to allow things to catch up a little bit. And now, as he has this rapid release of the hands, that creates a image on the front side of the swing where we see a very low exit, like so. Very interesting to see just how long his head stays down. We can see where his eye line is by this point here. Certainly he's not getting accused by any of his playing partners by lifting his head too early on a bad shot, that's for sure. One of the classic cliches we tend to hear in golf, often from unsolicited tips from well-meaning playing partners that amateur golfers might receive. As we play him on here a little bit more, we see quite a little bit of a cramped look here in terms of the arms and the way through. Even by this stage, the eyes are still very much looking down. And as I mentioned, he has a low exit, so that shaft appears very low around him here. Now, if we looked at him from a face-on view by this point here, we would see that we could classify this as having quite a short arc follow through with the driver here. Certainly compared to some of his peers on the tour, a lot of people would be in some much wider positions here. Now, if I did bring in a face-on image here just to show you some of the reason of where that short arc comes from on the way through, I would bring up this image right here. So as we look at Nico here from face on, I would like to sketch in a couple of lines here just to mark this front barrier here. And actually, let's put one on his trail side as well. So we talked at the start of the video that distance isn't necessarily the strong point of his game when it comes to driver. His accuracy is well up there. And when you see some of the positions that he's in, he's certainly a very skillful player and has some great hand-eye coordination that he can hit as many fairways as he does. But it is a little bit easier to hit the fairway when you're not hitting the ball as far as well, not taking anything away from his accuracy. But where we see this short arc here coming from in the follow through here, you can just, I know it blurs a bit the shaft, but you can see where things are by this point. One of the reasons why we're seeing that whip of the club into this position right here, where again it's a very short arc follow through, this is because compared to some of his other peers on the tour who would hit the ball further than him, one of the biggest correlations to driving distance is that the longest hitters get their weight more forward and more forward sooner. So certainly by this stage, a lot of their lower half, particularly coming into impact and through the golf ball here, they would have cleared through that front barrier where he's still very much within that. And if he's not breaking through that, he needs to get that club moving forward somehow. So the wrists get involved. There's more of a rapid turnover of the hands in an effort to create speed as well and make up for the fact that the weight isn't getting as forward as I say, perhaps other peers that he's up against. And when your weight isn't as forward as perhaps it could be, all of a sudden it becomes very difficult to have that extended look of the arms into the follow through. So just to give you a visual reference of a player who has a wider arc with driver on the way through, we've got Bryson pulled up on the screen here, and straight away you can see the contrast here now in the short versus the long arcs, like so. But there are some guys that have played the tour, like John Daly back in the day, or in the modern game, Chris Goddard comes to mind, of players who have quite a short arc follow through with driver and they still bomb the golf ball out there a country mile. So I wouldn't necessarily look at this being the real reason as to why Bryson hits the ball quite a bit further, but it's rather something that happens as a result of that. Now, not every player will react to a move in the golf swing the same way, but when we look at the guys on tour who hit the ball a long way with the short arc, like the John Dalys and the Chris Gotterups, we see them shift more weight to their lead side and more of it there sooner. And when we look at Bryson here, he does a great job of certainly following that trend. Breaks through that front barrier here, like so. And when he does that, a lot of players will find it easier to keep those arms extended for longer into the follow through and have that wide arc. But as you'll see here, it's not necessarily the wide arc that's getting the distance. That's happening as a result of the weight getting there to the lead side the sooner. We can see here in comparison for Nico, doesn't quite break through that lead barrier. Pelvis is staying back, and we talked from the down the line view that his pelvis did have that little bit of a stall here. But even into the conclusion of the follow through, two very different looks even of the spine angle by this point. Now we can see at the very end of a swing, he gets through that barrier, but as I say, the longest hitters, they tend to get more weight to their lead side, but crucially, more weight to their lead side sooner. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe buttons. It really helps with the growth of the channel, but it also just ensures that you won't miss out on any future content coming from myself here on the channel, of which there's plenty lined up to be released very shortly. For any golfer who has stayed until the end of a lengthy video like this, which is quite detailed, orientated, and very heavy on the educational side of things when it comes to the golf swing, you strike me as someone who is serious about learning and serious about finding ways to improve their own golf. If that is the case, then you can reach out and connect with myself today, regardless of where you are in the world. My name is Seán Marks. I'm a PGA professional and I specialize in teaching the full swing, and I help golfers worldwide through an app called Skillest that I use for my online coaching, help players reach their full potential tee to green. The online program that I run on Skillest that helps people of all ages and all skill levels reach their full potential tee to green is called the Long Game Transformation Program. The minimum commitment for this program for students looking to sign up is that of a 3-month period. Often is the case where students want to continue on long beyond this point because they've seen the value in it, their game has seen the improvements, and they want to continue to push the boundaries and see what's possible. But let's say that you only wanted to sign up for the first 3 months. Here is exactly what I can promise you you will learn. You will learn the 3 fundamentals required to completely transform your long game, and that is strike, direction, and distance. The first, in strike, you need the ability to control your low points. Second of all, when we touch on direction, you need to be able to have a predictable curve and a consistent shot shape that you can rely on out on the course. And third is distance. You need to be able to know how to pump enough distance into your game to be competitive at the level of this sport that you desire to play at. This program is designed to give you as much support as you need. There's nothing pre-recorded. Everything is personalized to the individual. There's open communication channels that you can message me whenever you want. Anytime you have a question, you can message me. There's unlimited feedback on the program. And if you're ever in doubt as to whether you're doing a drill correctly or whatever the case may be, you can message me and get feedback within a turnaround time of never any more than 24 hours. If you're ready to start improving today, I will leave a link underneath the video in the description box where you can download Skillist. Alternatively, you can search for it on the App Store and get started on your improvement journey today. If you want in-person coaching with myself in Ireland, I also work with players based in Ireland online, but if you'd like in-person coaching, you can see my booking diary on my website, seanmarksgolf.com. So I look forward to seeing you, whether it's in person or remotely online, very soon.